Second update 2. My husband thinks I baby trapped him despite the baby being planned. If you haven't watched the first 2 parts of this story yet, click the card above or the link in the description. Now for the second update to this story. Thank you to everyone for all the messages and kind pieces of advice. I have received so many requests for an update, so I thought I would quickly post and let you all know how I'm doing. Overall, everything is settled a little bit. In good news, I had a scan with a doctor and my mother-in-law attended with me, and the baby is happy and healthy. I finally found out the gender. I'm having a little girl. I am over the moon. My mother-in-law was a gem and was so touched that I had included her in the scan. She's very excited to be a granny. On that note, my mother-in-law organized a family lunch a couple of days after the scan. I was a little reluctant, but I knew that she had good intentions and wouldn't do anything to make matters worse. When I arrived, my husband and brother-in-law were there, along with my father-in-law, male 70, and my mother-in-law. It was quite awkward until my mother-in-law asked if anyone had anything to say. My brother-in-law spoke first and apologized for his awful text, saying that he was swept up in the moment and wanted to support his brother. I explained how hurtful it had been to receive such a nasty and vindictive message, and that he knew as well as anyone that my husband and I had been trying for almost a year. He hung his head and mumbled something. That was pretty much the last I heard out of him for the afternoon. Next, my mother-in-law looked quite pointedly at my husband, but he actively avoided anyone's eyes. Eventually, she spoke up and announced that my husband would no longer be welcome to stay in their house. She said that she was ashamed to have her son behave the way that he has, and that she would prefer to make space for her granddaughter rather than have some lowlife hanging around. My husband had opened up his mouth to say something earlier, but his eyes lit up when she said granddaughter. My husband always wanted a girl, and he was suddenly in tears saying that he was so pleased to hear the gender. My husband was suddenly wanting to touch my belly and ask if he could come home and paint the nursery. I told him in no uncertain terms that he was not welcome and that he had destroyed any trust I had in him. I told him that if I took him back, I would be worried that he would disappear in any kind of big news, and that I couldn't have someone at my side who balked at the first chance. He asked me if I was telling him it was over, and I point-blank told him that I had engaged a lawyer. My husband was kind of frantic, but I felt so calm, like someone had put a blanket over me in the situation. Normally I'm a big crier, but I felt so removed from everything now. My husband said that this was not fair. He had just shown a little bit of panic, and suddenly I am throwing away our life and denying him his daughter. My father-in-law reminded him that this is the same baby he felt trapped by no more than 2 weeks ago. My husband said that it was a mistake and he was stressed, but my mother-in-law asked him how he thought I felt. She asked him to imagine being so vulnerable and giving up your body to grow a family, and suddenly the one person you trust is accusing you of terrible things. He said it was a mistake and he projected his fears onto me. I told my husband that I felt so broken when he left, because I had all these dreams of a beautiful family which came crashing down in an instant. My husband said that he wanted those things with me, and he wanted our baby girl, but that he let the panic overwhelm him. I told him that wasn't a good enough excuse for what he put me through, and that he certainly didn't seem panicked when his mom had to drag him to my door to apologize. He didn't have much of an answer other than to say that he was ready now and wanted our girl. In all of this, in all the times he told me he wanted me and our baby, he never once apologized properly. After a very, very long discussion, the lunch wrapped up and my mother-in-law stood by what she said about my husband not being welcome. He asked again if he could come home with me, and I told him that it was my house. I owned a house before we married, and it was going to be a safe space for me. That is to say, he is not welcome. As far as I know, he is staying at some hotel. Finally, he was served divorce papers at work on Friday. My bestie's husband drafted them earlier, but I wanted to wait until I had thought it all through. I received a few missed calls and crying voicemails asking if I was really throwing away our family, but I did not respond. He then took a crying selfie sitting in his car, which my bestie laughed at quite a bit. My mother-in-law called me when she heard and told me that I am making the right decision. She said she never wanted my marriage to end this way, or for her son to be so callous, but she said she's here for my baby and I, and that we will always be family. She even tried to apologize on my husband's behalf, but I told her that was not necessary. At the end of the day, his actions are his to own. My best friend has been around all weekend, and we went baby clothes shopping for a little bit of sunshine in all of this. She has been such a rock, and her husband has helped so much with the process. I don't know what will happen next, but I feel much calmer and like I am making the right decision. I will update again if anything major or exciting happens, but for now, I just want to get through all of this and hopefully come out with a beautiful baby girl. Wish us luck. Now for the top comments. He even took a crying selfie sitting in his car. Wow, buddy, you dug this hole. OP, you really dodged a bullet. I'm glad you are doing better and that you keep mother-in-law. Yep, agree. That is some grade A manipulation tactics he's got going on right there. Acting like he's a victim instead of the one who destroyed his own damn family. All he had to do was Google what baby trapping actually is. What it ain't is a 7-year marriage and tried for pregnancy. Consequences meet some very stupid actions. When my toddler falls asleep on me and I can't get up, I say I'm baby trapped. My friends and I call that nap trapped. I got his mom in the divorce is such an amazing flex. Good for Opie. That was actually quite sweet. Maybe I read too many horrible mother-in-law posts here that I forgot good ones exist. My mother-in-law always says she'll beat my fiancé's butt if he leaves me, but mostly because she knows I'll get the dogs. Let's hear it for this Reddit unicorn. A better than decent mother-in-law. I had an amazing mother-in-law who passed 2 weeks ago, and I can't tell you how much I miss her. She was one of 2 people I could actually be myself with. All my flaws were out in the open, and she was just accepting and amazing. There are few and far between, but unicorn mother-in-laws are out there. I wish Opie all the luck in the world. Next story. I lost the love of my life because I didn't think I was good enough for his kids. After a long period of being single, I finally found an amazing, kind-hearted guy, 30. He was everything I ever wanted and exceeded my expectations by far. My 28 was and still I'm so in love with him. He was the love of my life. Yesterday, he ended things because he told me I don't seem ready to be a stepmother to his 2 daughters, 5 and 8, and it broke my heart. I haven't even met them yet, but we had a discussion about how things would look like with me as their stepmom in the picture. I said I would support him, but I can't take full responsibility for them because I work full-time, and I didn't bring them into this world. He said that his kids always come first, and I don't seem mature enough to put someone else's needs before my own. He went on to say that I might make him very happy, but I won't be capable of making his 2 girls happy. A major point that made me angry was that he said that he would ask his 8-year-old if she wanted another sibling before considering having a child with me. This really upset me because I don't want a child to have authority over an important decision like that. He said she should be included in that decision, and from there on our conversation went downhill. He broke things off, saying I'd be an unfit step-parent since I'm not willing to put their needs first. I'm absolutely heartbroken. I would have loved having those kids in my life. I just didn't want to give up everything in order to serve them. I'm in a lot of pain. I love him so much and I've envisioned myself having a future with him. We were already talking about getting married, and now it all became nothing overnight. Thanks for listening. Opie, you might not see this now, but you dodged a huge bullet. Your life would have been ruled by his children. Your opinions, wants, and needs would not matter at all. Him saying that an 8-year-old can tell you whether or not you are having a child is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. It's crazy. Yes, it sounds like a very unhealthy dynamic. I'm a single dad with shared custody, so I get prioritizing the kids. But they don't get to be first all the time. They don't get to decide whether or not they go to school. They don't get to decide what to eat. And they especially don't get to decide whether to have more kids or not. Raising kids is about showing them how to make good choices, not letting them rule the roost. I'm afraid that Opie's ex is going to raise a couple of entitled monsters who don't know how to deal with being told no. Sometimes people confuse this idea. Putting kids first does not mean making your partner subservient to them. It does not mean you shouldn't make time for your partner. It does not mean your precious kids can't ever be wrong. Children are not deities to be worshipped and pedestaled in perpetuity. It's commendable for any parent to prioritize their kids, but that should not be at the expense of everybody else. This is how society winds up with whiny, lazy, entitled, disrespectful teens/adults. This man is not the love of your life. It was the honeymoon phase. When it passes, you'll be able to be truly grateful that it's gone. Yesterday, my stepson called crying because nobody will take him seriously enough to offer him a salary job. He dropped out of 7th grade and played video games all day, despite my complaining and moaning and trying to force him to go. He's 31 now. His daddy cannot even get him a job at a company he's worked at for the kid's entire life. His brother works there though, so he's just as miserable now watching his dad, sister, and brother make a decent income. It was sad he was crying to his dad that he would never be successful at anything. I let his father know after the call how many times I was there to remind him he needed school, and this is the price he will pay for the rest of his life. He did not need a wife. He needed a caretaker for his children, with occasional benefits, who can be appeased with a ring. Had you agreed to this, in a matter of months your life would be that of a stay-at-home mom, excluding the love one would harbor for children raised from day one. Those children in kind would not love you as a mother. Also, there was an overwhelming chance that he simply did not want any more children. Hence, leaving your future plans on a maybe or the verdict of his daughters. Losing someone who on the surface came off as perfect, I understand it hurts. But frankly, if he was willing to head into marriage this early, after repeatedly affirming you would need to raise his children, it raises questions about the true motives and reasons why he was so eager to secure you. In my opinion, you dodged a bullet. Last story. How do I, female 28, tell my husband, male 33, that I want a divorce? I'm miserable. So miserable. We used to be really happy and like each other. Since our daughter was born, everything has changed. She's almost a year old and is yet to do anything to help with her. He sleeps in a different room to me and the baby as she's still in my room, so he's never done a night feed or rocked her back to sleep or anything like that. He doesn't sort her meals, her bottles. He doesn't do laundry nor clean the house. He sits on his ass constantly and just plays on his phone. No matter how much I say I need help with everyday things, he always says he'll change but doesn't. We argue every single day. He's self-employed, works constantly, and still brings home hardly anything. What he does earn, he takes for petrol in a car, vaping, and tattoos. This has been going on for years. He has a job for a bit, then gets fired and doesn't do anything for a while until he goes to the next thing. For 6 years, I've single-handedly been financially responsible for every single thing. All the bills, the rent, etc. is all down to me. We're in a lot of debt, and I pay my own as well as his too. And obviously now we have a child, I'm also doing all the parenting. I do 99% of her care, and he maybe gives her a bottle once every so often. His patience is awful, and his attitude is worse. He constantly believes I'm cheating. If I'm on my phone, he wants to know exactly who I'm texting and what we're talking about. It isn't because he's interested, it's because he thinks it's someone else. I want to divorce and be free. I'm already doing everything alone, so it makes no difference. I feel like I'm trapped though. He has nowhere else to go if I ask him to move out. He can't afford to get a place of his own. The house we live in is owned by my father, and every bill etc. is in my name, so I'm not leaving. Doesn't matter what we say, he thinks we're happy. He can't take the hint and I'm miserable and wish he'd go away. Despite it all, I want him to be okay moving forward, and I'm worried about hurting his feelings saying I'm done. I'm worried about custody and his family, who don't like me anyway, and the impact of that too. I'm worried the opinions of everyone else with this. And I don't even know how to say I'm done. I've been trying for 6 months to tell him, but he says he'll change and things will be different. I don't know how to do it, but I know I need to. I'm sorry, this is a lot of rambling. Just feel like I'm at breaking point with life in general. Mental health isn't great and I need to escape. I don't want to keep trying to make this work when I don't feel anything towards him but resentment. Edit, in response to the constant "why did you have a kid with him" comments, because I'm obviously an idiot and I've ruined her life already by dragging her through this. I don't need the reminders that I'm a terrible mother. I'm already aware. I'm trying my best for her and she's always first. I'd have started this process months ago, but I'm afraid of him, alright? Now for the top advice. I've filed for a divorce. Hand papers, or have your lawyer do it themselves. You've described someone who is only dragging you down. The longer you wait to dump this loser, the longer you'll hurt. I'd arrange for male family members or even the police to be there when this goes down. Followed by, get the F out of my house. Don't do that without advice from your lawyer. In a former life, I worked in a family law firm and saw this all the time. Generally, you can't just force your spouse out of the marital home, even if he is a freeloading loser who has never paid a bill. It's stupid and it sucks, but it's the law. OP should talk to a lawyer before doing anything. From someone who can appreciate from personal experience, a lot of what you say above is 1. You've tried to communicate your needs. He's had his chances. You say he's been like this for years. If he hasn't changed by now, he isn't going to. Not in this relationship anyway. 2. This relationship is not a partnership. You are roommates. and you were taking care of everything. You're a single parent in a marriage with 2 parents. You deserve better. 3. Of course, he doesn't think there's an issue. He has it easy. You take care of everything and he likes it that way. 4. The above point said, I honestly doubt he is actually happy. He's probably just comfortable enough to keep going. 5. Don't worry or be guilt-tripped about where he would go if you divorced, how he would feel, etc. That's a false flag that keeps you in a situation that isn't healthy, for reasons that are selfish for the other person. 6. Don't worry about what others will think if you get divorced. They don't have to live in a marriage that makes you miserable. They don't have a dog in this fight, period. 7. Where do you go from here? My advice would be to quietly talk to an attorney. Get your ducks in a row. Plan out with your attorney what the next 6 to 18 months may look like. Let a trusted friend or family member who can keep quiet know what's going on, so you have someone you can call if you need help ASAP. Make sure you and baby are/stay safe. 8. Do not stay together for the baby. Your relationship is not healthy, which means it is not good for the child either. As a person who was stuck as a child in a household with parents who should have split long before they did, please don't use the child as an excuse to not leave. Best wishes to you, OP. This is amazing advice, truly. Rest assured, my baby deserves better than to be stuck in the middle. Am I the a-hole for putting a restraining order on a friend? I, 23 female, and George, 22 male, had been friends for a long time as our families have been friends for 3 generations. After having a one-night stand, I gave birth to a baby girl, Visha, and she's now 2 months old. After I got out of the hospital, I took her to meet everyone and they loved her. George's mother is in a phase where she really wants a granddaughter, and well, she has all grandsons, so she became really attached to her. Well, George has also become attached and rather possessive of my daughter. The problem began when he started calling her his daughter and would constantly say, "Daddy's here," every time she cried, and I told him to stop. And yes, her dad is in her life. We FaceTime and visit him as he lives in a different state. Well, one day while we were on FaceTime, my daughter's dad, Carl, 24 male, asked for a DNA test. It shocked me to say the least. So I asked him why. Turns out, ever since my daughter was born, George has been sending texts to Carl saying how Visha wasn't his, that George was the father, and to stay away from his daughter. I saw red. I went to George's house and cussed him out and stopped talking to him. Mind you, my daughter is a month old at this time. Well, George took it upon himself to go to my house while I was at work and tell my mom that I said he could take her. My mom had no idea that I cussed him out and stopped talking to him. So when I came home, I found my mom asleep and my child nowhere to be found. I ran screaming and yelling at my mom as to where my baby was, and she told me George came and got her. I immediately got into my car and went to George's house. He wasn't there. I went to his mom's house and there he was sitting on a couch holding my baby. I grabbed my daughter and told him to stay the hell away from her and to never think about coming near us again. His mom, who was at home at the time, came walking in the door and asked what was going on, and I told her that George took my daughter without my consent. I then went to the police station and filed a police report and a restraining order. His girlfriend, and also the mother of his son, has been harassing me and calling me all types of names and saying I'm an a-hole for putting her son's dad in jail. So am I the a-hole for protecting my child? And also, I have never and will never hook up with George. That is disgusting to even think about. And I don't have a problem with his mom. I love her and always thought of her as a second mom, seeing as we were around them all the time and we were next door neighbors until they moved. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. He kidnapped your daughter. It's as simple as that. Friends don't kidnap your kids. Right? I can't imagine going to my besties and leaving with her child, even if we have known each other since first grade. If I did that to my best friend, I know 100% it would end our 14-year friendship. Because she would unalive me, and I'm auntie to her kids. We've done some pretty messed up things to each other, but our kids are a line we don't cross. Not the a-hole at all. George is weird and obsessed, and it's creepy. Please let everyone know what he's been doing before his family can spin it to look like you're the crazy one. Get a lawyer and send him a cease and desist letter as well. Also get video recording cameras for your home. His family isn't like him. They immediately cut him off after they found out what he did. Thank God. You are in the right in all this. It kind of sounds like George and his girlfriend wanted a set of a boy and a girl, and were trying to take your kid from you for that reason and cut you out. You did the right thing. What if he had thought about you getting angry and hurt your kid? Or realizes you were looking for him before you found it and hurt your kid trying to get out of trouble? He doesn't spend time with his son, and we would yell at him because every time his son would cry, he would yell, "I wish you were never born." It scared me half to death. I honestly wanted to end him. It's extremely alarming that he is so fixated on your daughter while ignoring his son. I would fear the absolute worst if I were his girlfriend. She doesn't care. She does anything and everything to please him, and he knows it. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for refusing to spend Christmas with my family after my mom introduced herself to my 3-year-old by her first name? My mom and my wife avoid each other if they can. There was never a big incident. My mom isn't a just no mother-in-law, and my wife isn't some horrible daughter-in-law. But if they can get away with not speaking, they don't speak. For a little while, my mom tried to keep her close relationship with me by trying to see me when my wife wasn't there. But I felt weird about that. My life got busy, and more I told my mom that the only times I was available were when my wife would be there, so my mom lost interest in seeing me. In the 4 years I've been married, I've seen my mom a handful of times. It was hard on me for a while, but I feel like, what am I going to do when the two of them just don't want to interact? My mom did send a gift when my 3-year-old was born, and she has met her a couple of times. My mom is always polite when we see her, but obviously there can't be a traditional grandma role when she doesn't want to come around. My wife's family live across the country, so I spend most holidays with my family. My mom isn't the one hosting, and I am not forcing my wife into an uncomfortable situation. My wife genuinely likes a lot of my cousins, and we mostly hang out with them, and my mom hangs out with her husband, sister, and brother-in-law. My daughter has met my mom, but not enough to remember her, and is going through her curious stage. When we all gathered for Thanksgiving, she asked my mom who she was, and my mom gave her first name. She was really nice about it, but it still left a bad taste in my mouth, like she's still her grandmother. And while we aren't close at all, there was never a formal estrangement. I didn't say anything in the moment. My wife suggested it might be a vanity thing, but I don't know. She was never particularly vain. Recently, Christmas plans came up, and I stated that I don't want to go if my mom is there, due to her rejecting my daughter. Now, my whole extended family thinks I'm being dramatic. My wife is actually annoyed, and says I'm being an A for wanting to deprive our daughter of a family holiday, just because my mom is a witch. I just don't feel comfortable, and it's really left a bad taste in my mouth. Obviously, there can't be a traditional grandma role when she doesn't want to come around. It's surprising that you accept this as fact, but are then so angered by your mother not introducing herself with a traditional grandma name. I mean, which is it? Either she's grandma and you make an effort to foster a good relationship between her and your daughter, or she isn't, and you accept that she will introduce herself as just another member of the extended family. You're the a-hole. Seriously, what was she supposed to say? And how was she supposed to know that was what she was supposed to say? You're the a-hole. I felt weird about that. You felt weird about seeing the woman who gave birth to you alone, yet you want her to stake claim to your child? I'm sure she's as confused as I am. You're the a-hole. It sounds like you and your wife are icing your mother out, and she is being very respectful of that. If you don't want her in a traditional grandma role, then why give it a title? Do you want your daughter to constantly ask, why can't I see grandma? Jenny's grandma picks her up every day. Have a grown-up conversation with your mom, following a conversation with your wife, about what type of role you want her to have in your daughter's life. She can decide if she's comfortable with that, but it seems like she's trying to respect that you don't want it to be traditional, and you're cutting her off even further and calling her a witch for it. You're seriously not thinking of your daughter at all, and seem to just want to stick it to your mom. Even your wife thinks you're in the wrong here. I would love her in a traditional grandmother role. Anytime I've invited her to spend time with us, not just me, she says she's busy. I've tried to include her in things, but she always has an excuse. You're the a-hole. Your mom did nothing wrong. You pushed her out of your life when she tried to have compromised and see you alone. If that was the only way I could see my mom, I would do it. She was disrespecting the woman I love by refusing to be around her. If she could have been normal and done some stuff as a family with us as a couple, then I would have hung out with her one-on-one. She refused to do that. Every time I try to include her, she has an excuse. Just because you love your wife doesn't mean your mom has to like her. Some people just don't get along. Not being around someone isn't disrespecting them. Next story. Am I the a-hole for making my sister leave my house at a family dinner? Plus little update. I, 21 female, live with my now fiancé, 25 male, and we like to have our families come over for dinners or to hang out. My fiancé proposed over the weekend, and we did not tell anyone except my sister, 27, and his best friend. We wanted to surprise everyone with the announcement and invited them over for dinner, and my sister knew we would be announcing our engagement. At the end of the meal, before we brought out dessert, we told everyone that we had some exciting news. That is when my sister cut me off mid-sentence and said, "I am pregnant again." Everyone in the family was so excited and happy for her and her husband. I think I stood for a solid minute with my jaw dropped. My grandma then made a comment to me about how sweet it was to have made this dinner for her announcement. I was furious. I walked up to her and her husband and said, "Please leave," and she looked like I had just stabbed her with my words. She started crying and saying how I wasn't excited for her and I was just jealous of her life. And she didn't think I even liked my nephew, too, whom I love and spoil. I told her again that she had to leave, that she and her husband could not stay anymore. My mom was furious with me and told me I had to apologize after my sister left my house. Her and my dad went on about how insensitive I was being, and that I was disrespectful to send my pregnant sister out of my house. I apologized to her and my family, but I still don't think I was in the wrong. I still have not told my family about my engagement. So am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments before the little update. Not the a-hole. Your sister sucks for sure, but I think you probably should have told your family. After your grandma made that comment, you should have said that your sister hijacked the event, and you told her it was to announce your engagement. By not telling everyone, it makes it look like your sister announced her pregnancy, and you got so mad you kicked her out. So people are gonna think you were an a-hole instead of realizing your sister is to blame. Petty option. Tell everyone you threw the party to make your own announcement. Your sister knew that and stole it. If they want to find out what your announcement is, they can pressure the sister into throwing you a makeup dinner. Or have a party for some other people. Tell them and put it on social media. Send it to a family chat and write, "This is what I was going to tell everybody." Sis knew but didn't care that she stole that from you. With fiancé's family to make a point about her family's refusal to listen to her. We almost exclusively see my husband's family, because even if they pull some annoying crap, we know they'll have our backs if we need it. And if we lay down a boundary, they listen. I love my parents, but they are a-holes. Not an a-hole. You should tell everyone the dinner was for your engagement, and your sister knew beforehand. If anyone still sides with her, I'd go low contact with them, and I wouldn't include your sister in your bridal party and or planning. I wouldn't even invite the sister to the wedding at all. Depending on how far it is, she will likely be announcing baby number 3 during the reception toasts. Why did you apologize? It was a truly awful thing to do. My advice? Don't bother telling your family. And if they find out from someone else and want to know why you didn't tell them, then explain. This is a level of pettiness that I am completely here for. Reminds me of this kid whose parents weren't going to their graduation because they weren't the valedictorian. In a way, they were actually that person. And instead of telling their parents, they just sent them a video of the graduation speech. Pettiness level 100. Edit/update. I FaceTimed with my mom and dad this morning and spoke with them calmly about everything that happened. My dad agreed with me that it was disrespectful of her to take my moment in my dinner. My mom, on the other hand, said I was still insensitive, and it was unfair of me to ruin my sister's moment, and that I could have announced it at a different day and let her have the moment. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my daughter she can come to me if she wants hair removal? My 42 female daughter, 14 female, is pretty hairy compared to most girls her age, just like I was at her age. Brown jeans, LMFAO. Recently she mentioned how she had to wear shorts for basketball in school, and she had more leg hair than anyone else there, which made her embarrassed. I went through the same feeling as a kid, so I completely got what she meant. And I knew that she was going to try remove her body hair at some point, and I didn't want her to feel like she had to do it in secret like I did. So I told her that if she wants to remove it, she can tell me and we can work something out. But if she doesn't, there's absolutely no pressure to do so. Anyways, my husband, 45 male, found out about this and was enraged, telling me it just made her more insecure about her hair, and I'm gonna turn her into a look-obsessed idiot, his exact words. My reasoning was that she was already insecure about her body hair, and telling her she couldn't remove it would just make her miserable, and she'd end up doing it in secret and probably in an unsafe manner. I'd rather her be comfortable and open with me about it so she doesn't hurt herself or feel anxious that I find out. I went through this whole thing before, and there was a time I plucked out my arm hair individually in secret before a party because I didn't want to look stupid. I don't want her to go through the same thing. My husband claims I'm setting a horrible example to her and making her seem like that stuff matters more than it does. I'm scared that's what I'm doing, but at the same time I feel like giving her a choice was the best option. I don't know. Is there something I'm missing or doing wrong? Not Day Hall and men don't get it. Plus what he said was cruel. He isn't the one being pointed at and whispered about and made fun of. As a kid who went home crying every day for a year at 11 to 12, I get it. And 100% removing the hair will make her feel better. My family's upper lip hair people, and the teasing stopped as soon as they let me wax it off. He doesn't get how cruel children are, girls especially. Yeah, my husband's white and barely has any leg/arm hair. I was jealous as hell when I met him, so I really don't think he gets how exhausting it feels. But I 100,000,000% agree with you on children are cruel part. They see a girl with body hair and act like she's some alien being. You should stop shaving and doing hair removal for yourself, and let him see for himself what you go through. If it's no big deal, then he won't mind. Not Day Hall. You are being a wonderful, supportive parent. It is certainly age-appropriate for her to remove hair. It is her preference to remove or not, which you honored in what you said to her. She obviously wishes to remove it, or she wouldn't have brought it up. Husband goes on the bench on this one. I wonder if you have a son, and what will happen when he reaches shaving age. I bet it would be a wonderful male rite of passage, not a boy being a looks-obsessed idiot. Thank you so much. I was really worried that I was just passing my childhood insecurities onto her, but I didn't want her to feel trapped, you know? And with the son thing? Exactly. No one's gonna force their son to keep a beard so they don't turn vain. Same should go with the daughters. Not Day Hall. Your husband is going way too far into the body positivity idea, and forgetting that A, not everything is about what other people think, she can do it just because, and B, your daughter lives in the real world where teenagers can be mean. Your husband is taking away her autonomy. You aren't telling her she has to remove it, just offering her a safe way to do so, and telling her that it's her choice. I don't think it's the body positivity thing for him, but more like why do you care sort of thing. The same goes for makeup. I painted her nails a couple times, and he acted like I was setting her up for a child beauty pageant. It sounds like your husband has a problem with your daughter growing up. Because a lot of men, maybe not just men, see makeup, nail polish, etc. like a way to make yourself look more sexually appealing. He has to understand that she's not doing it for others but for herself, something that you seem to understand more.
Am I the a-hole for kicking my stepdaughter out of my house after she sabotaged her father's party? My stepdaughter is 19 and absolutely hates me. I have been with her dad for 8 years and met him a year after he divorced her mother, but her and her mom both blame me for the divorce. They divorced because she cheated with his brother. I have made multiple efforts to bond with her, and she has nothing but bad things to say whenever I do. Like in your dreams, go F yourself. You'll never be my mom, so stop trying, etc. Despite this, I still try, and it's absolutely exhausting. Her father has spoken to her multiple times, but she truly doesn't care. On Wednesday, I was throwing my husband a surprise birthday party. I invited my sister-in-law, mother-in-law, and stepdaughter. My sister-in-law is hands down my best friend, while my mother-in-law and I are civil, usually. My sister-in-law called it and said something bad was going to happen, that she had a feeling. But I ignored it. I baked the cake and got him like 4 gifts, one of which was an expensive watch he had his eye on for months. My sister-in-law even came with me to buy it. Long story short, when I was out on the back deck grilling and my stepdaughter was the only one inside, and the cake ended up being accidentally knocked off the counter and the watch was gone. I asked her where it was, and she said the only watch she knew about was the one her mom bought for him, but she wouldn't let me see it. Husband walks in halfway through the argument and she hands him the watch I bought and said, "Mom knew you liked watches, so she got this for you." My sister-in-law was the first to speak up, saying that I had bought that watch and had my back 110%. My stepdaughter then goes in complete hysterics, saying that once again I was trying to bash her mother and take credit, when all her mom wanted was to do something nice for the love of her life. I immediately told her to get out, and then showed my husband the receipts. She refuses to leave and says she won't be told she can't be in her dad's home. I've owned this house for 21 years. My husband has my back and tells her to get out and not come back, and says he is done with her lying and trying to play matchmaker. My mother-in-law, who saw the whole thing, then starts berating me and blaming me for alienating her grandchild, and says I'm the reason they don't have a relationship. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. When all her mom wanted was to do something nice for the love of her life. What on earth are your stepdaughter and her mom on? Your stepdaughter is more than old enough to learn some manners and treat you in a civil way. She doesn't have to like you, but should show basic respect. I'm assuming she can go to her mom's house after being kicked out, rightfully so. So it's not like she's out on the street. If your mother-in-law really cared about her relationship with your stepdaughter, she would make her own effort and call her out for her attitude towards you. Thank God for your sister-in-law and husband supporting you. Stepdaughter wouldn't be allowed in my house anymore. She can live with her mom, and her dad can bring her out to go places, but she's not allowed back at the house ever. And going forward, I would never attempt to speak to her again, and consider a restraining order on her mom. Not today, Hall. Your stepdaughter is a raging lunatic. Her mother cheated on her father, but you're to blame for the divorce? How does that work in her twisted mind? Raising a little monster that will cheat to get what she wants. For what it's worth, my mom left my dad because he was completely absent in our lives. He worked and came home, and that was it. No extracurriculars, no family trips. He would just stay home. Nothing outside of more or less existing in the house. When she filed for divorce, my dad started, being a dad. My brother ate it up, latched onto him, blamed my mom for everything, moved out of the house to be with my dad. Sometimes people make weird choices during a divorce. Has anyone ever just flat out said, ask your mom about her sleeping with your uncle? She knows about it, but says that if I didn't start dating him, her parents could have worked it out. That's insane. I get wanting your parents to be together, but it's been a decade and she's 19 now. There's something seriously imbalanced about her to think she could pass that watch off as a gift from her mom. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for how I punished my stepdaughter for flushing her sister's spices down the toilet? I, male 42, married my current wife when my daughter, 16, was 4 and my stepdaughter, 14, was 2. They grew up as if they were blood siblings with occasional disagreements and jealousy issues, mostly from my stepdaughter. 2 days ago was my daughter's dog's 3rd death anniversary. Usually, at that time, she'd rather be alone to write poems or look at pictures of her beloved dog. This year, she asked me to go with her to visit his grave, which is located in her grandparents' farm. And though my wife appreciates my daughter's need to have time alone, my stepdaughter wanted to come with us, though she wasn't close to the dog. My daughter refused to let her come and only wanted me to go. My stepdaughter then threw a fit and insisted on coming. I sat her down to explain her sister's need for space that day, and she stopped after that. We left, but 15 minutes later, my wife texted me that my stepdaughter had a breakdown and didn't stop crying, then flushed all her sister's spices that were in separate containers down the toilet. They were a gift from my daughter's Asian friend's mom, since my daughter is into Asian food and cooks meals every week. I was stunned. I called my wife, but got no response. My daughter asked what's wrong, but I just dropped her off at her grandparents' farm, then went back home. My stepdaughter refused to come out of her room, yelling that my daughter deserved it for excluding her like that. I was pissed. I told her I'd punish her for wasting spices that were important to her sister that she shouldn't even touched, by taking from her savings to pay for the damages. But my wife thought I should only take away privileges and not money my stepdaughter saved. She said she's still a kid, and she won't let me touch her saving but will pay herself. But if my wife paid, then my stepdaughter will think her behavior is okay. Then she said my daughter's to blame too for not letting her stepsister come with her. She acted as if she never goes to the farm, though I take them there twice a month. I argued that this was, in my opinion, the right punishment to get this resolved. But my wife said I was only making my stepdaughter resent me because she wants the money for a new bicycle. We kept disagreeing on this, and all I was thinking of was my daughter's reaction when I told her. She was devastated, but I assured her I was taking steps to help her replace all the spices she lost. My wife called me cruel. Am I the a-hole? The consequence he came up with is absolutely fair. Since when do consequences need to be adapted and tailored to the kid's preferences? You also shouldn't be afraid to insist on a consequence just because she's your stepdaughter. You've raised her most of her life. Moreover, what she did was wrong. So she wanted to save up for a new bicycle. Well, her sister wanted to save those spices for cooking a meal. She owes her sister monetary compensation. The whole point is to show her that it's not worth doing something like this again. If your stepdaughter is sad/upset about this consequence, that means it's working. Not a hole. Oh my goodness, yes. My son is 8 and is having a hard time accepting consequences for his actions. Yesterday he missed a portion of the visit with my in-laws at his stepbrothers, as his punishment was to stay in his room. The visit was in the front yard. Because of his age, he gets the opportunity to have a redo when he understands his actions. It is frustrating to enforce a lot of the time, but I am doing it now to help make him a more compassionate person later. Thank you for your hard work making a good future adult. It is not easy, but damn, it is appreciated by the rest of us. Your wife doesn't want your stepdaughter to replace something that she stole? Suddenly, her tantrums at 14 years old aren't so surprising. Not an a-hole. This. Opie has a wife problem. The wife offering to pay instead of the 14-year-old is ridiculous. It explains why the 14-year-old is so bratty. Opie, protect your daughter and get the entire family into therapy, or things will only get worse since your wife enables her daughter's bad behavior. Not an a-hole. She had a tantrum, acted entitled, and destroyed someone else's property. She knew exactly what she was doing, and did so maliciously. Now she's responsible for paying for it. Not an a-hole. It's pretty much the punishment fits the crime. Now stepdaughter will have to wait on getting a bike until later, and she'll hopefully learn that actions have consequences. Better to learn that now as a young teen versus later. Not an a-hole. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister nobody surprised her stepson chose not to visit anymore? My sister and her husband started out online dating. When they decided to get serious 9 years ago, he moved across the country to be with her, leaving behind his then 7-year-old son. He and his ex were already apart at that point, but from what I've learned, they had shared custody up until then. His son was not happy that his dad moved so far, and when the first summer of long-distance parenting came, he clearly didn't want to be there, and showed no excitement or interest in getting to know my sister. My sister was all surprised Pikachu face at the time, and couldn't believe he was so dismissive of her when they met. Over the last 9 years, they have gotten married and had 2 children together. Now my sister's stepson has decided he no longer cares about maintaining contact with his dad or half-siblings, and told them in April he would not be flying out this summer. Last year didn't happen due to COVID, so they were hoping he would come. But he told his dad he didn't appreciate being left for some woman, and especially didn't like the way his dad started a new family after moving so far away from him. Meaning he had to travel across the whole country every single time he saw his dad, and how he was done. That his dad could keep his new family and he was good with his mom and family back there. My sister is stunned, and she cannot believe he feels the way he does. She asked me if we could talk about it last week, and she asked me if I could believe he would do this. I said I could easily believe it. That nobody was shocked by his actions because it was clear he was hurt, and felt like his dad abandoned him for my sister. He never appeared to any of us to care much for his half-siblings, and he definitely doesn't give a crap about my sister. It was also clear he was angry with his dad, but my sister's husband expected him to adapt and adjust, and probably thought he'd get over it with time. Well, he didn't. My sister was pissed that I said nobody was surprised. She said I was dismissive and cruel with my words. That's saying that 21 is as good as I told you so. She told me none of us should have expected this, and if we did, we're all huge a-holes. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not an a-hole. I mean, truth sucks to hear, but the dude literally just up and left his kid. I'd expect him to take time and effort out of his life every year to visit them. Of course, the kid is going to grow bitter and resentful towards his father, and the people he was abandoned for in his eyes. I never understood people who would just find someone thousands of miles from where they live and just expect the kids to adapt and accept things without having the right to express what they're feeling. In certain cases, the moves are necessary. Both my divorced parents were military, but they made an effort to ensure they were both a regular part of my life, even living across the country, and I visited all summer and on major holidays. I'm betting that Opie's brother-in-law put very little effort into making sure he stayed a part of his son's life despite distance. Not today, Hall. Did she ever acknowledge it had to be hard on the stepson to go through what he did? Or that the dad should have flown back sometimes to see his son? It seems so one-sided, and I don't see any acknowledgement of care for stepson's feelings on the part of your sister. The truth hurts. It's incredibly disruptive to the child to have spent entire summers so far away from all his school friends. It had to suck listening all the kids tell their stories about summer camps and Little League the first day back from school. Truth hurts, yo. Not today, Hall. And given how you don't mention them ever visiting the son, meaning the burden was always on him, what else did they expect? At the very least, they could have done vacations over in his area and do fun stuff with him, if they want to make him feel like he still mattered. Yeah, it seems common on the sub that the kids are the ones putting the effort in. Usually a good indication who the a-hole is going to be. Not an a-hole. Opie was right. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for calling my father a worthless sperm donor and then refusing to come to his son's funeral? My 17 female father, let's call him Carl, left my mom and I when I was 6. I didn't even know my parents had issues, and apparently neither did my mom. So it was a total surprise when I woke up that morning to my mom in hysterics because he was missing. We searched everywhere, contacted everyone we knew, and still it took, well, over a year before we even found him. Even then, it was just so my mom could get a proper divorce. No contact since then. My mom was the best, but she was killed in an accident when I was 10. I was in the car with her and in a hospital for a while afterwards. The authorities went looking for my dad, but when they couldn't find him, custody of me went to my mom's foster/adoptive parents. About a month ago, my grandparents were contacted by Carl, who claimed he wanted to see me. Or rather, he wanted me to meet his son, 11, who was apparently sick. Have I mentioned that Carl got himself a new family the same year he ditched us? Kid wasn't even his, but apparently meant more to him than I ever did. Anyway, it seemed like the kid wanted to meet me. My grandparents made it clear it would be my choice, and I said no, vehemently. Then days ago, Carl showed up at my house screaming that I was an awful child/sister because I refused to grant his son's dying wish, and now the kid is already passed. I felt sympathetic towards him, but there was no way I was gonna let him blame me for it. So this may be where I'm the a-hole. I told Carl he had no right to my time because he was nothing more than a worthless sperm donor who didn't even show up when my mom died. Then I told him that under no circumstance can he force me to attend his son's funeral because I didn't know him, nor did I ever want to. My grandparents are on my side, but they did mention that I could have been just a bit nicer because this kid just died. But frankly, Carl was an A. It is not like I said he deserved what happened for being a crappy dad. So, am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Screw Carl, and what happened to the kid isn't your problem. I'll take downvotes, but it's the truth. Opie never knew the kid and had no relationship. Your grandparents are good people, and you were probably the world to your mother. Hold your head up high and remember the good times. Not the a-hole. No downvotes for me. Carl sucks as a father and as a human being. $5 says he was after a kidney, liver, or bone marrow to save the other son, and that's the only reason he got in touch at all. Not an a-hole. That's kinda how I assumed it was going to end up being about, and while it wasn't confirmed one way or the other, that's just because Opie didn't take the bait. Maybe the kid genuinely wants to make a connection with some rumored sister, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was just about finding out whether she's a potential medical match. Not an a-hole. Though I think that it claims that his stepson wants to meet because it figures that will be a better guilt trip to inflict on you than Say does, because there's no reason why the kid should want to see you. Not an a-hole. Also, I'm guessing he never paid child support as he went AWOL. Might be worth getting his contact details so he can be made to back pay that. Not an a-hole. He had it coming. Glad you got a chance to get it off your chest.